Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
As far as me going down there again, I'll look around the stadium during warm-up. After that, when the game starts, hopefully get the plays in there, hopefully get the defense, special teams guys ready to go. It's the fifth time I've been on the opposing sideline. It's not that big a deal.
Mentally, he's ready to go, and I think physically he's ready to go. As far as how he's going to play, I don't know. We're going to find out. I think he's going to play good. Practice is good.
I wonder if Spurrier goes by and looks at his statue when he walks into the Swamp, maybe talks to it a little bit and reminisces about the good old days of winning championships in the Swamp. And I wonder if he'll be a little bit nostalgic as he takes the Gamecocks into Florida Field on Saturday. Will this be his last time? I hate to keep bringing that up. I'm not going to beat that semi-dead horse.
You just did.
No, you got that. You got
is
that.
This his last time? I'm just asking questions here.
For those
That's all I do is ask.
those who are looking at us on the website, Corn, for certain fans, he likes to see grimaces and people sticking pins in their fingernails, so he mentions that all the time because he's –
Well, until somebody comes out and says he's definitely coming back, instead of I'm planning to come back or we're hopeful he comes back, how about somebody just stepping up and saying, cut out all the rhetoric and the chit-chat. He'll definitely be back as South Carolina's football coach in 2015. Unless, to most people, him saying to Josh Kendall last week that my plans are to be back. If they take that as being strong enough, then so be it.
I don't think it is signals because with those years when he was losing 5 and 6 in a row, well, maybe they need to get somebody else in here to do something. So he's been saying that off and on every time he's had a mediocre year. So I just let it go in one ear and out the other.
How they finish, I think it's his most important focus. Now, he did say as he was leaving today, asking any hard questions.
You think he was looking for it?
Maybe he was looking for it. It wasn't asked again because, it was asked twice last week. So why ask again? I think he's just focused on trying to win against Florida and see if they can get themselves bowl eligible somehow.
All right. It is a Talking Tuesday, and we're going to dive right into the coaches here in just a moment. I did want to update everybody on the basketball stuff going on from a recruiting standpoint. No decision yet from Tevin Mack. No announcement from Mack is expected tomorrow. He's not expected to sign tomorrow. Could be Thursday. Nothing is definite there on that because he hasn't decided yet. And P.J. Dozier will sign tomorrow at 12:30 at school. He'll announce his choice at that time. As we told you last night, he had made his decision. Actually, I think we said last night he was down to 2, and then maybe it was later in the evening we had that he had made his decision. I can't remember. It's all running together. And so South Carolina, of course, waiting on that. And Clemson will also find out tomorrow if they are going to get the 6'9" kid from Charlotte and from Africa, Ibuke Izundu. He has decided to sign early. Last week he wasn't going to sign early. His coach tells us he is going to sign early. It's either Clemson or Charlotte, and that'll be something about 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. All right, be back in a moment.
always a tough opponent. You can go back forever.
All right, Talking Tuesday here on Sports Talk, brought to you by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork, powered by soy. All right, the coaches, they had a lot to say. Dabo Swinney, Steve Spurrier. Also, Brad Brownell up at Clemson. We'll hear from him tonight as well as he previews the Tigers season opener and the beginning of their new season, his fifth at Clemson. But we lead off tonight with Clemson football coach Dabo Swinney getting ready for a Georgia Tech team, which is very scary.
Always a tough opponent. You can go back forever in Clemson history, and Clemson Georgia Tech is always been just a great game and a very tough opponent for both sides. Offensively, they are really playing and flying at a high level and just doing a great job of executing. They're averaging 6 yards a carry, 335 yards rushing a game, scoring 38 points a game. So huge challenge for our defense, obviously. And, I think the biggest thing when you look at them this year, their quarterback is just playing lights out for them. He's playing at a high level. And the things that jump out at me is they really have done a great job of establishing the dive play. I mean, they've got almost 1,400 yards rushing between the two main guys that have been playing there. I know 10 Days has been in there as of late, but those two guys are right at 1,400 yards rushing. So they've done a great job of establishing, the dive play. And then the other thing that just jumps out at me is their receiver is the leading scorer on the team. And, that hasn't been the case. I mean, they've done a great job in the passing game. I think excellent job in the passing game. This quarterback has done an excellent job of throwing the football. He's made some big timely throws for them, some fourth down conversions. And just very impressed with how they're executing offensively. Days is averaging 6.2 a carry. Their wing guys, A-backs, number 9, number 31, number 21 are all averaging, great stats as far as their rushing stats. And then, the one, number 9, he's averaging 21 yards per catch to go with it. Doesn't have a lot of catches, but when he catches it, it's a big play. And then when you talk about their passing game, they're averaging right at 20 yards of completion. And so that's huge. Smeltzer, 15, he's at 22 yards a catch, and 88 is averaging 18 yards a catch. And then, like I said, little number 9, he's averaging 21 yards a catch. So they are really hitting on a bunch of big plays, but it all starts with them being able to run the football and the decision making that the quarterback is having. So we got a big challenge there. Obviously, you got to win the line of scrimmage. You have to win a line of scrimmage. What they do is all about angles, and we have to defeat blocks. We have to stay on our feet. I think that's critical. Obviously, this is that type of game where, every game doing your job is important, but this is one where, everybody, you better not get bored of doing your job over and over and over. Otherwise, it's a big play. We got to do a great job of leveraging the ball from the outside. Our secondary guys, when they're involved in the run support, because they crack. So getting off of blocks, guys triggering off of the cracks, but yet staying disciplined to the cracking goes, the stalking goes, all that type of stuff that comes off of their run game from a play action standpoint. First down and third down is critical because they basically are kind of a 4-down mentality, pretty much the whole ball game. And that's just how they play. So, big challenge. Hopefully we can play our best game there. I think we're going to have very well. And then, defensively for them, the biggest thing is they're a bunch of juniors and seniors. There's a lot of, juniors, redshirt juniors, seniors, redshirt seniors all throughout their defense. So they've got some good experience over there. I think they're very knowledgeable as far as what they're doing. They've done a great job of creating turnovers. I think they've got about maybe 10 or 11 turnovers just in the last few ball games alone. and they've scored on defense. Just this past week, created a couple huge scores, opportunities defensively. And I think that Ted Roof does a great job in putting them in good position. From a coverage standpoint, they do a good job of mixing their coverages. They do a good job with the pressures. Well-coached football team. And then special teams, number 4 is, one of the best in this league. Punt returner, kick returner. So big challenge for us. Always a tough opponent that's well coached, and we're looking forward to going down to Atlanta, and we're gonna have to play well. So with that, I'll take your questions.
We're expecting Guillermo and Sharon back yesterday. Did they practice? And any further stat update?
Yeah, they both practiced. Have not talked to Guillermo today, but Sharon was actually in my office a little bit ago. He felt good today. Practiced last night. Guillermo took pretty much all the second team reps at center. So we're hopeful that both those guys will be back and available for us this week. But again, we really get into the grind of it today and tomorrow from a physical standpoint. But both looked pretty good last night.
Is it realistic to expect Deshaun Watson to just literally pick up where he left off, or maybe a quarter of rust, or has it been that long to think that he would be a little more?
Well, I hope he picks up better than where he left off. He didn't leave off very good, to be honest with you. We're playing a pretty good defense, and he didn't play much, but we thought we had a touchdown call, and he ends up throwing it to the back, who's not expecting it, but we didn't know that he couldn't feel his hand out there. He knew something wasn't right, so he just got rid of it and came on out of the game. But he's got some experience now. It's not like this is his first time to play. He's played. There's not near as many unknowns with him for us as there was, start of the season when the guys never played a game, and especially on the road. I mean, he's played on the road. He's been in difficult situations. The big thing with Deshaun is he's done a great job of really staying totally engaged into game planning process and what's happening at practice, and then during the games, being very, very focused and dialed in mentally as to what was going on. He's made good suggestions during the game. So I think mentally he's ready to go, and I think physically he's ready to go. As far as how he's going to play, I don't know. We're going to find out. I mean, I think he's going to play good. Practice is good. So I don't think he's any different than anybody else.
If Jay is able to go, he hasn't played in a month. Do you feel comfortable just putting him right in there at center in a game?
Well, again, we watched him practice this week. I mean, that's, we get our comfort, based on practice and how they're moving and how they're executing in practice. Again, he's played, so we know what he's capable of doing, but how's he practiced this week? And then how are the guys performing throughout the course of the game? Those are all things that you decide, as you move forward.
Is Ryan getting closer to Chad talked yesterday about him returning to that edge.
I thought he played really well last week. I was proud of Ryan, and sometimes that sideline will motivate you a little bit. And obviously Guillermo's been out, and we hadn't quite the competition at that position. For whatever reason, he had a couple games there, just wasn't playing quite to his standard. Ryan's been a pretty dependable guy for us around here, and it was good to see him last week to get back and did some good things. Played with that edge we were looking for. So hopefully he'll play well this week, and but it's good to have Jay back, and I think we'll know more after tomorrow. I mean, he's a little different. He's a plus pounder, so it's a little different than Gary Peters or somebody like that, who had the same injury. As far as their coming back and effectiveness and those type of things.
Years ago, I guess 2 years ago, after the Georgia Tech game, I remember Coach Venables saying, "Thank goodness that's over." Does that kind of sum up this week versus, what they do?
They're just, it's tough because you just don't see it. It's kind of a season of its own from a defensive standpoint. It truly is a season of its own, but we work on it all year. I mean, it's something we do in the spring, something we look at in fall camp, something we do in the open dates, just to try to kind of keep it out there in front of our guys, because there's just not really any carryover.
There you go, still Dabo Swinney from his press conference earlier today up at Clemson, and expressing great respect for Georgia Tech, as well he should. We'll be right back. All right, a Talking Tuesday here on Sports Talk. Coming up, we'll hear from USC coach Steve Spurrier. He had a couple of pieces of news, or you picked up a couple of pieces of news from his press conference?
Brandon Wild said he's giving serious thought to entering the NFL draft. I think he's going to do the senior day thing next week, even though he's a junior. And on an injury front, Sky Moore will be back at linebacker, so that should be a boost for the Gamecock defense. Mm-hmm. And let's see, Matulis is not practicing this week, might be available. Busta Anderson is practicing, may start ahead of Jarrell Adams. They don't know yet. And I think that is everybody on the injury front. So that's the major news.
I don't think we had
the major minor news.
I don't think we had this piece with Dabo, but the safety situation with Robert Smith out, it'll be TJ Green and Corin Wiggins battling, and Jar Johnson, all three of those in practice this week. One of those will emerge as the starter in that safety spot because Robert Smith has to sit out the first half. All right, let me go ahead and give you the recruiting report ahead of Steve Spurrier. We'll get Spurrier coming up here in a little bit. Again, in basketball, the early signing period starts tomorrow. USC Clemson, both waiting. The Gamecocks will learn around 12:30 if they've won out for 6'7" PJ Dozier of Spring Valley. USC, North Carolina, Georgetown, Michigan, Louisville were his schools. An announcement program at his high school gym tomorrow at 12:30. USC Clemson remain in limbo when it comes to Tevin Mack, 6'5" from Dreer. He had planned to announce today, and early in the morning he confirmed he would do so, but that announcement was put off because he wasn't able to make a decision. He's not expected to be ready to sign tomorrow. Thursday is considered a possible signing day for Mack, though that was not definite as of tonight. He's also considering VCU, Georgetown, Connecticut, along with USC and Clemson. And Clemson will find out tomorrow morning if it's the choice of 6'9" Ebuka Izundu of Charlotte. His coach told us this afternoon that he will sign tomorrow morning. Last week he said he was probably going to wait till the spring. The Tigers or Charlotte, 50-50 between those two as of tonight. Now to football. Defensive end Marquavius Lewis, Hutchinson Junior College in Kansas, a commitment. But three SEC rivals are working him for official visits. He's not sure if he'll take any. He made his official to USC last summer. He talked to USC recruiter a couple of days ago, but he's getting pitches from LSU, Alabama, and Auburn, and each has invited him for an official visit. He plans to decide later this week if he will schedule any visits. He still has a bowl game to play in, and this season he has 55 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, 11 sacks, and 19 hurries. And defensive back John Broussard from Phoenix City, Alabama. He has USC and Clemson offers. He wants to visit Clemson when they host the Gamecocks, but that trip has not yet been confirmed. He is showing interest in the Tigers and USC, but he hasn't heard from either of them lately. He camped at USC last summer, went to a game at USC this season, or had wanted to attend a game at USC this season, but didn't make it in. He's been to games at Auburn and Alabama, and he named Auburn and Kentucky as the two schools showing the most interest in him at this point. All right, that's recruiting here on Sports Talk. Back with Spurrier.
Getting ready to play the Florida Gators, a team that seems to have found their quarterback.
right, let's continue with our Talking Tuesday, as Sports Talk is the only sports talk show in South Carolina to actually cover the news conferences every week of Steve Spurrier and Dabo Swinney. That's right. We are the ones who are there, asking the questions, getting stared at, being ignored, getting responses, and drawing the praise because we're there.
Praises us.
It's private. Private praise.
Private,
PP.
yeah.
Private praise.
Internal
You're
praise.
supposed to praise in public, chastise in private.
All right, so we heard from Dabo Swinney here on this Talking Tuesday, brought to you by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork, powered by soy. Now it's time to hear from Steve Spurrier, heading back home to the Swamp to see if the Gamecocks can straighten things out and get a little bit of a winning mojo going for them down the last 3 weeks of the season. Here's Spurrier.
So getting ready to play the Florida Gators, a team that seems to have found their quarterback. Seems like we go through the year and the other team seems to find their quarterback. And the Gators have started Treon Harris, I think the last two games, Georgia, and then their last game up at Vandy. And he's played very well for them, and their entire team's playing very well. They've always had one of the best defenses in the country, in the conference. If you take away the Alabama game, Alabama 600-something yards on them. If you took that one away, they'd probably be right near the top in most all the defensive categories. So that's they've been that way, for quite a while down there. Very good defense, and now they got their offense straightened out. Playing with very, very few turnovers now. And that's what makes them a really good team at this point. So we'll have our hands full, but we'll look forward to going down there. The Swamp, 12 noon kickoff. Hopefully it won't be quite as loud as the 7:30 games or whatever. But our guys are looking forward. I think our guys have bounced back as well as could be expected right now from another tough loss, and got to put it behind us, shake it off, and get ready to play the very best we can down there. Florida's still in the hunt for the Eastern Division. I guess they need Georgia to lose one and Missouri to lose a couple, but everybody's got tough games going down the stretch here. We're finishing up. Our conference record is obviously not very good. We got 3 losses in there that we had 3 leads that we didn't hold, and we all know that. And there's nothing we can do about it now. But it's a team losses. And one thing I will say nice about our players, I think they've been ready to play. All these, our preparation, our energy early in the games, we just haven't sustained. And that's my fault as coaches. We can't get them to sustain it as well. Maybe a few different calls here and there would have helped also. But we're looking forward to going down there and give it our best shot and see what happens down in the Swamp. As far as me going down there again, I'll look around the stadium during warm-ups. And then after that, when the game starts, hopefully get the plays in there, hopefully get the defense, special teams, guys ready to go, and try to do whatever I can to help us win the game. So it's the 5th time I've been on the opposing sideline, so it's not that big a deal anymore. And we look forward to a heck of a battle. Brian, you can't take him anywhere, can you? Yeah. Okay. Other than that, injury-wise, we got a few guys banged up. But Sky Moore should be back. Sky, leading tackler and so forth. Certainly missed him last game or so, but he should be back ready to play. And we'll look forward to going down there and giving it our best shot. Okay, any questions?
Steve, you mentioned their defense has been very good. You guys did go to Auburn and throw up a lot of points against a statistically good defense at that time. Do you think you can do it against Florida?
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes, you always hope this, that, and the other will happen, and hope we can do well offensively. Some of these games we need to stay out on the field longer. Staying out there longer is more important than scoring the way it's happened in some of these games, as we all know. But who knows? Who knows how the game will take place? But yeah, Dylan's ready. Offensive line, Pharaoh Cooper. I'm sure they'll know Pharaoh's out there after the game he had last week and the week before and so forth. He's truly an outstanding player, outstanding individual. Of course, Brandon Wiles had a big game. We wished we'd had the ball in his hands more, but that's history too. So we'll look forward to seeing what we can do. Yeah, there's no pressure on us except try to play the best we can. So we'll see if we can do it.
Coach, real quick, just with Tennessee, you had a guy coming in, Josh Dobbs, Trayon Harris kind of coming in, maybe some similarities. Do you kind of feel like you guys might face kind of the same things you faced against Dobbs with Tennessee with Harris and Florida?
He is a quarterback that can run. I think he had a couple of rushing TDs against Vandy, and he's a good passer too. Yeah, I read in the paper where the Clemson quarterback, Watson, he's going to be ready now too. So we're getting these teams with sometimes a new quarterback, but it seems like their best quarterback when they face us. Yeah.
Feel pretty confident about your offense, and do you think it's playing probably as well as any of your offenses here at USC?
No, we don't look at it any particular way, except that we just haven't won the game. We have faltered at the end, as we all know. Some calls I wish I had back. But overall, we've run the ball and thrown the ball, I guess. But still, the only thing anybody cares about is the W and L there. And we're on the bad side of a lot of games where we made a lot of yards.
For the Tennessee game, you said you guys were going to try to switch things up defensively, maybe blitz and move some guys around up front. Do you feel like you guys did that? And have you tried about everything you think so far?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that one, to tell you the truth. I've tried to sort of look in on the defense a little bit here, there, and the other, but, I've been an offensive coach my whole career, and that's what I'm most comfortable doing. And obviously our defensive coaches, they were here all last year. They've been here through the 11-2 seasons. And whether or not, we should have done this, that, or the other, obviously we wish we had. But we're struggling so much with the pass rush. We're struggling with getting pass rush. And, maybe blitzing would help. But still, again, at the point of the games, our guys stopped them a lot. We shut them out in the third quarter last game. We've had some stops, but as it turned out, third downs and fourth downs, we've not been very good this year, and it's cost us.
Steve, since you've been here and historically with this program, other than y'all's 2010 game, lost at Florida and lost badly a lot of times. What is it about that place? You've been an opponent and the home team there. What is it about that place that makes it tough?
We lost badly that year. They had a heck of a team. Percy Harvin and Tebow and all those guys. And I guess we didn't lose too bad the next year here when Tebow scored 5 touchdowns. But, we almost had him that first year. That was sort of a heartbreaker. But we won one there. We beat them in 2010. Of course, Marcus Lattimore carried 40 times and pretty much controlled the game. And that was for the Eastern Division. So that was, I think, the only win South Carolina's had in school history there. So it's not an easy place to play. But all the SEC schools are pretty difficult.
Is there something about the Swamp, though, that's unique to the Swamp in terms of an opponent playing in there?
It's a big, big stadium, loud. Fans go crazy. Yeah, certainly. But it's mostly a real good team there with the noise and so forth, just like LSU, Alabama, Auburn. I think that was their first loss in a couple of years at home last week, and we all saw how they ended up losing that game. So, bad stuff can happen.
All right, Steve Spurrier, his views on his team and the Gators and going back down to Florida one more time to see if he can work some magic. I think the Gamecock offense, they're going to be facing a very good defense, but they're a good offense. They can move against anybody, but can the defense finally hold it together for 4 quarters? All right, we're back with you, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We've got time for some phone calls here over the next few minutes. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Our email, talkback@sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter @sportstalksc, and the website sportstalksc.com. On Facebook, you can like us there, Sports Talk Radio Network. But we've got time for some calls if you want to join in and comment on what we've talked about thus far. Comment on what Spurrier and Sweeney had to say, and talk about the upcoming games for USC and Clemson, or maybe the recruiting situation regarding Tevin Mack, PJ Dozier. What do you think is going to happen with those guys when one of them makes their decision tomorrow and the other one possibly on Thursday? One other basketball recruiting note, Luke May, 6'8" power forward from Cornelius, North Carolina, whom Clemson had recruited for a good while. He committed to North Carolina today. Of course, his father is a former Tar Heel quarterback, Mark May. It was Clemson, North Carolina, and Davidson for him, and he committed today to the Tar Heels, probably as a walk-on player to start out. So he is going to go to North Carolina and see if he can perhaps help raise their GPA out of the sewer from where it would rest if they didn't have the made-up. Well, it's a fact.
Bring it up. Yeah,
they hadn't had the made-up classes. A couple of other notes to pass along to you from today around the SEC. Kyle Allen will be the starting quarterback for Texas A&M against Missouri, even though Kenny Hill is off of his 2-game suspension. Allen will stay the starter after leading the Aggies to that win over Auburn. And if he plays like that, he's going to start a lot more games moving forward for Texas A&M. Meantime, at Auburn, Gus Malzahn said today that it is unlikely that Duke Williams will play on Saturday after he suffered that injury to his knee against Texas A&M. He took a helmet to the knee and eventually ended up on crutches. He's listed as week to week. And at Louisville, quarterback Will Gardner suffered a knee injury against Boston College, and he's out for the rest of the season. And this was announced today by the school. He'll undergo surgery in the coming weeks. USC's Dylan Thompson, one of 12 finalists for the 2014 Werfel Trophy. And that honors the college football player who best exhibits exemplary community service. So he is a finalist for that. Let's see who else from the area is on the list. Chris Connolly, receiver from Georgia, is one of the 12. That's the only other player from the SEC or the ACC on that list.
He had a big game against Kentucky last week.
Who, Connolly did?
Yeah,
well, everybody on offense had a big game
that's
for Georgia. Later on, Mick Mixon will join us, and, man, we'll talk about that debacle last night by the Panthers. I thought the Bears' performance against the Packers was the worst I'd seen in the NFL for about the last 5 or 10 years, but that might have been trumped by the Panthers last night.
A different kind of awful. I don't know. They weren't. They gave up 6 touchdowns. They gave awful. They spread it around a little bit. They didn't just let one guy score touchdowns. They said, you know what, we're going to let a special team score, a defensive score, a running score, a passing score. They wanted to really kind of let every different dynamic.
And they buried themselves early with turnovers. Two turnovers on their first couple of possessions. Or were they down 10-0 right out of the gate?
10-0. But you thought they were going to stay in the game because that first turnover, you said, oh, that's a quick 7. And they held Philadelphia to a field goal. So you figured they would come back. Then they threw the pick on the second consecutive offensive play. Then that kind of cost them. And I never thought they met the Monday night. See, Philadelphia came on that field with Monday night intensity. The Panthers came in to go to work. And if you don't meet that other team's home intensity on Monday Night Football, you can get embarrassed.
I think the Panthers' egregious offseason mistakes are evident each and every week. They made huge mistakes not rectifying the losses on their offensive line. They made no effort to bring in legitimate wide receivers. You put Cam Newton, who was dinged up in the offseason. He's out there. I don't think he's going to make it through the season.
He's hurt.
And they don't take him out of the game. They're not protecting this guy at all. I mean, they literally aren't protecting him, and then they're not looking big picture and getting him out of that game and getting Anderson in there. They said, we want to let him develop with these receivers that he didn't. Again, no receiver on that roster caught a pass last season. other, wide receiver. Now Olsen was there. The running backs are trying to get healthy, but that's putting Cam, who has his deficiencies, that's putting him in an unfair spot.
Think about around the NFL now, these young hotshot quarterbacks coming out of college who ran the spread and also ran the ball quite a bit. And now you're putting them in the NFL. And this is something John Gruden talked about last night in relation to Newton, but others. Look at RG3, look at Newton. And man, Gruden is right. The punishment these guys take when they leave the pocket and risk their body, that's why they're out so much. They can't, it's different than in college. And they're taking the abuse, and it's affecting their performance, and it's costing them time on the field. We'll be right back. High school football report coming up. Don't go away. Coming up on the top of the hour break, you're going to jump on board 800-956-7266. Let's give you tonight's high school football report. And that is brought to you by South Carolina Farm Bureau Insurance. Players of the week, as selected by David Shelton of the High School Sports Reports. And we begin with the 4A crowd. And the players of the week there, or I should say the player of the week, is Bryson Ward of Gaffney, quarterback. 23 of 28, 249 yards, 3 touchdowns in that win over Northwestern. 3A player of the week, Myrtle Beach quarterback Drayton Arnold in a 69-28 playoff win, 16 of 17, 396 yards and 4 touchdowns in only one half. 2A player of the week is 96's Rod Johnson, a Shrine Bowl selection. He rushed for 210 yards and he scored 3 touchdowns. Class A player of the week is Rico Brown of Lakeview. Rushed for 210 yards. He scored 5 touchdowns in the playoff win. Skeeza player of the week is Douglas Dwight from Northwood Academy. He caught 6 passes, 246 yards, and 4 touchdowns in a playoff win over Thomas Sumter. There you go with the high school report tonight, and brought to you by South Carolina Farm Bureau Insurance. Also want to mention that the recruiting report earlier tonight was brought to you by South Carolina's Electric Cooperatives, sponsors of the 2014 Touchstone Energy Bowl. That's coming up December 13th in Myrtle Beach. Make sure you make plans to be there for that. They'll have the announcement of Mr. Football at halftime. It's a lot of fun, a great time to go down to Myrtle Beach and watch high school football. Get down there early during the week. Go watch practice. You get close and personal with the players and then the game itself on Saturday with the kickoff at 12:30 on December 13th.
This Mr. Football, is it voted on before the playoffs or after?
You know, that is a good question that I've never asked that question.
Oh.
So I don't know. I'll have to find out in case it's important to you.
No, I mean,
I'll see if I can
sometimes
find
a
out.
guy have a great season. You said, well, why didn't he get more votes? And then somebody explodes in the playoffs who had a decent season, and he may get more support.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I'll see if I can seek out the answer on that. All right, coming up in our next hour, a little basketball from Clemson coach Brad Brownell. The Tigers opening up Friday at home against Florida A&M. Man, they've got a tough schedule. Not to mention, of course, the ACC slate, which he says the ACC is better this year, will continue to get better, but they're going to play non-league games against South Carolina, Rutgers, Auburn, Arkansas. Winthrop's going to be pretty good this year. They were good last year in the Big South. They have a tough schedule this year. And for the fifth straight year at Clemson, he goes into a season with the previous year's leading scorer gone. You know, he's still looking for that year when he's got his top dog back for consecutive seasons. We'll hear from him. Mick Mixon as well in our next hour. We'll catch up with him on what happened to the Panthers last night. And, of course, Chip Wild from Darlington will be here to preview the championship race on Sunday at Homestead. We'll be back.
Live from Columbia is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
And we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Talking Tuesday. Phil Kornbluth, Professor Tom Hayes, and K-Mac, Kevin McCrary. Glad you're with us. If you are watching us on our video stream at sportstalksc.com, good to have you with us there. Maybe you're listening to us on our audio stream as well there, maybe over iHeartRadio or over the airwaves, however you have us tonight. We appreciate you being with us. Coming up, Brad Brownell from Clemson, Chip Weil from Darlington, and Mick Mixon from the Panthers. If you want to jump in real quick, 800-956-7266 is the number. Let's talk about the games coming up. First of all, Clemson, Georgia Tech. This shapes up to be just a great football game, guys, because you've got the number 2 defense in the country, number 4 against the run, against the number 2 rushing attack in the country. Something's got to give. And the problem for Clemson is that Georgia Tech, and Clemson's very good at what they do on defense, but this Georgia Tech team with the play of their quarterback is a little something extra again on offense. And listening to Brent Venables today and Sweeney talk about the way they block you and they cut you and they block you on the perimeter and they blocking you downfield, telling you what, they're going to have their hands full defensively. This Venables said this will be the biggest test of the year thus far for his defense.
Well, I'm thinking that Grady Jarrett is the key because, as I said before, Dabo mentioned that the dive play, when they run it right, geometry tells you the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and Georgia Tech is running that thing up the middle. If they stuff the middle, now they can concentrate on the wings where Clemson is great in pursuit. And that's where the linebackers come in. And I think that's going to be the key. Control that run up the middle, and then now it's divide and conquer. Take away that Georgia Tech, what you're going to do. And they would rather not throw, but they can if you dare them to do it.
Now, offensively, you think Clemson is going to maybe get back to form. In the 2 games that Watson started and played all the way through, of course, they were against bad defenses, North Carolina and NC State. The Tigers averaged about 50 points a game and over 500 yards a game. From the Louisville game to now, when he went out, those numbers dropped to 22 points and 277 yards per game. But they were playing better defenses now. I mean, Boston College was a better defense, and Louisville was a better defense. But still, the drop-off, very noticeable. The question is, will the Tigers get back up to their full throttle offense simply because Watson is back under center?
He did so well when he was in there. I mean, he was just electric from the get-go, from Georgia to Florida State. His first start against North Carolina, record-setting performance. The next week, another record-setting performance against NC State. He was coming back down to earth a little bit against Louisville before that injury even. Yeah. But, that's to be expected. He's a freshman. They'll be better with him if he's healthy, no doubt.
Well, I mean, I'm picking the Tigers. I haven't thought yet about the spread, but, head up. I think Clemson's going to win this game, though they haven't won in Atlanta since 2003. All right, Brad Brownell coming up. doubleheader of coaches up at Clemson today. We began the morning with Tiger basketball coach Brad Brownell coming in to talk to us. Tigers open up their season Friday night at home against Florida A&M. And they've got a very tough non-league schedule, as I mentioned earlier. And then they jump into ACC play with a 5-game slate that would test even the best teams in their league, much less one picked near the bottom. Anyway, he's still optimistic despite losing KJ McDaniels. He's got 4 other starters returning. Some guys are healthy, and he's upbeat about the upcoming season. Number 5 for Brad Brownell.
Well, excited to be a new season. We off to a pretty good start. Played very well defensively in the exhibition against Anderson. Really pleased with our defensive discipline. I thought our guys really locked in, especially when we got the lead and really didn't give much ground. But we had good spurts offensively, especially the last 15 minutes of the the first half, and a little bit at the end of the second half. We were slow, certainly coming out of halftime when we had the lead, didn't respond very well to playing with a lead. But all in all, pretty good scrimmage. Guys have worked hard this offseason, and we don't have, a player of KJ's caliber on our team probably this year, but I do think we have good depth, and we can play with a bunch of different guys in some different positions. And we do need to stay a little bit healthy in the front court. We're a little bit thinner in the front court, don't have quite as much depth there as the perimeter, but I like our team. I think we're hopefully going to shoot the ball a little bit better this year from the perimeter. I think that'll be a key to our success. And defensively, we need to play like we did last year. I think we need to be pesky. We probably need to knock a few more balls loose and be a little more aggressive at times defensively. But all in all, just excited to get started. It's been a long fall, and I think our guys are ready to start to play some other people. Questions?
How important are these is the early part of the season for your younger guys, just to sort of get them into the grind of college basketball and get them used to sort of the pace of the game, the physicality of the game?
No, I mean, every game's important because they're all worth one. But certainly I think in some of these earlier games, you want to get some of your young guys some minutes and give them opportunity. At the same time, I think you're still just trying to figure your team out, to be honest. Every year, it's, this is the 5th year in a row where I've lost my leading scorer, and we're kind of trying to figure out exactly who's going to be our primary go-to guy. And in situations, I think it'll probably change this year. I think certain games might be Noko, and other games it might be a guy like Roper. It might be DeMarcus. It could be Rod Hall could take over at times. So I do think we have maybe a few more options, but there are also times I think you appreciate the fact when you have a guy who you can just kind of throw the ball to and make a play. And KJ certainly was that for us last year. So that's one of our challenges. And early in the year as a coach, you're kind of still trying to go through those processes of learning about your team, who plays well with whom, and what guys feel comfortable making plays late in games. There have been some guys that have, and there's some guys on our team that have probably been out there, but maybe haven't been asked to do as much to be asked this year.
You were able maybe last year, the first part of the season, to maybe sneak up on some teams. Yeah. Not a lot of hype around this team this year, but within the conference, probably not going to sneak up on too many people. Would you think?
Probably not. I would think that there's a little more respect for our program and what we're doing after last year. Very pleased with the way our team played last season. We were probably a game for making the NCAA tournament. But certainly the run in the NIT was special in a lot of ways. It was great to see the crowd come out and support our team. I think they really rallied around a group of guys that got the most out of their ability and played very well together and overachieved in the minds of most. This year's team, I think, is more of the same from the standpoint. I think there's a lot of questions with our team in terms of, still how are we going to score, who's going to be the guy that helps us win games late, how good can they be? Still some questions, although we do have, more experience back with Rod and DeMarcus and Landry and JB, 4 guys that were primary starters. It's just their evolution, I think, is what people need to see, including myself, of how much those guys have improved and what they're ready to do. And, so I still think it's it's an exciting time as a coach this time of year because you're really anxious to see how the guys perform. And you've watched them work and put in the time, and now you see them, perform together well. And, I'm anxious to see that here for the first month of the season to see how we do.
Marcus admitted that sometimes the mechanics of his shot would get off a little bit last season. Are you seeing a more consistent mechanic?
Well, I think DeMarcus, that's the area of his play that needs to be better. He's not the most consistent player all the time. He had a great run at the end. I think he scored double figures in 9 of his last 12 games and was a very good player for us. But he goes through times where he is not as effective, i.e. the exhibition game. Now, he was coming off a sprained ankle and really didn't practice as much leading up to that. But I think he and I have talked, and he has a great challenge this year of being consistent. And if he doesn't play as consistent, he won't play as much. We'll play other guys, the Austin Ojukwas, the Jordan Ropers. Those guys will take some of his minutes. And, it's a good thing to have other options. You would hope, though, that your senior guards, really respond and get off to really good starts. I think it is a little bit important. I think DeMarcus needs to play well here in the first month. He's not going to play well every game, but he needs to show flashes early that he's back to the guy we saw the last 10, 12 games of the year. Because he is experienced. He is a very good defender. He has good length for his position, so he does have some built-in advantages and experience and defensive know-how and want to that get him a lot of time. He's just got to be more consistent offensively as a scorer and passer.
Do you think Rod gets the respect around the league for a guy that has played as much as he has going into his senior year?
I think he probably gets a lot of respect from other coaches in our league. I've had multiple coaches talk to me about him, kind of off to the side, whether you're at a recruiting event or before a game, or about how much they respect his play and how competitive he is, how tough he is, tough-minded, and then how he just accepts his role and thrives in his role. And I've had multiple guys say they want to get a guy just like him, looking for a guy just like him. And, I think Rod's the type of guy that fans maybe sometimes don't see all the things he does. He and I were both criticized when he was a freshman and sophomore for playing as much as he did by a lot of our fans in some ways, just from the standpoint of they didn't see him being able to do any more. They just, I think they thought he was a serviceable backup that would never be good enough to be a starter. And you couldn't win with him. And obviously last year he proved a lot of that wrong because of the way he played. But there's more things that he does in a game than stats. He did a really good job on the point guard at Anderson, kid made a couple tough shots early, and then I challenged him in a timeout. And then for the rest of the next 30 minutes, you didn't hear from the kid. And it's like nobody paid attention to that. But if that kid got hot, the game would have been a little different. And he does that on a number of instances. He could have taken 10 or 12 threes in the game against Anderson. He's just not wired that way to do all of that. He's a guy who wants to get other guys involved. He wants to be a team guy. He's such a good passer and facilitator of the offense that he makes guys better. He might not always make the assist, but he's a lot of times making the pitch ahead pass in transition that leads to a score or leads to the pass that leads to the assist. There are just a lot of things that he does that probably aren't noticed as much by fans. But
all right, Brad Brownell previewing his team. The Tigers open up against Florida A&M on Saturday, and heard him talking about Rod Hall. And I think a healthy Jerron Blossom game is big for them. If they can keep him healthy, that will be a major bonus for them. The improvement in the middle as well. The big man in the middle, they think he thinks Noka is going to be a good rebounder, shot blocker, and will score some points. All right, coming up in just a couple of moments, we'll have the new ranking from the college football playoff panel. We'll pass that along to you as it's made public. So I guess it's pretty much cut and dry that it'll be Mississippi State once again, Florida State, Auburn will drop out, Oregon, Alabama will probably be the top four with TCU waiting in the wings. Let's see. I guess I'm just trying to think who else might move up. Baylor probably moves up a good bit. Ohio State will move up a good bit. Yeah. Be coming out here shortly, and we'll see what the panel has this week.
I think that Virginia Tech loss will continue to haunt Ohio State, but they had no choice. They threw in a quarterback with no experience, and they got caught with their pants down, but he has played lights out since then, and that is a huge win against Michigan State. It will be interesting this Saturday because I think in Minneapolis, Ohio State coming off that high could get upset by the Gophers. You know, the Gophers are 7-2 this year.
Having a heck of a year. Is there any way, I'm just sitting here thinking out loud, I mean, look at Clemson now. The Tigers could easily, well, I'm not going to say easily, Tigers could finish 10-2 with a couple of quality wins, Georgia Tech on the road and at home to South Carolina. Auburn could beat Alabama, knock them down. Clemson would have two losses like they do. Florida State, I'm just thinking about potential losses. Ole Miss could beat Mississippi State. Florida State could lose to Florida down the road.
Wait, what? Florida State could lose to who? Florida?
They could. I mean, they are playing in Tallahassee, I believe.
Well, I would think.
I'm just thinking about, hypotheticals. That could
Well,
happen.
the
Rivalry
upset-
games.
Are you trying to get Clemson into the top four? Is that what
I'm just trying to see how far the Tigers can climb.
Goodness.
No, but Florida State could get
they will
upset this
be
weekend.
they will be they went out. That's a 9-game winning streak. So they'll be one of the hottest teams in the country. If Watson comes back with his magic, they're scoring 45, 50
What
points
would their
a game.
quality wins be, though? I mean, that's the problem.
Well, if they finish out with wins,
quality.
well, it's a quality win over your rival. Georgia Tech on the road would be a quality win.
That would be their. If they win Saturday, that's going to be their best win of the season at this point.
Louisville would be considered a quality win, even though their starting quarterback was out for half the game. It'd still be a quality win.
BC.
I mean, they play the schedule they have, and they don't. How do you consider?
I just don't think Clemson hasn't shown they're not a top 10 team.
But if
now. Maybe
if
they
you're
are
the
with
committee,
Watson in there,
and you're looking at Clemson, Florida State, for example. The Tigers have that game if they don't fumble. If C.J. Davidson doesn't fumble the ball,
so Clemson beat Clemson.
They were 0-2 against themselves at that point. But anyway, aside from all that, if you're the committee, do you consider things like that when you're looking at the team? You go, this team is really good. They could have won that game if they don't fumble
one member
in the
of
last
the
3
committee
minutes.
would think that way.
But
But
he won't be in the
he
room.
would be excused from the room.
He'll be having a cigarette somewhere. Does he smoke? Does Radakovic smoke?
I don't think but he'll do it after the season.
All right, that'll be coming up here in just a little bit. Chip Weil is coming up to talk NASCAR. We're down to the final 4. Going to Homestead. Be right back. right, back with you here on Sports Talk on a Talking Tuesday. Good to have you with us. We've heard from Steve Spurrier, Dabo Sweeney, and Brad Brownell. Right now, the weekly college football playoff rankings are being announced. Where was Clemson, Pro?
Is at number 19.
Number 19. So
Number
moving up, they
19
were
this
what,
week.
21, I think,
Mhm.
prior to that. We're waiting on the 4 to be announced, and we'll break in and tell you who those are when they come out. But we know the 4 who are going to be racing for the championship at Homestead this weekend. The sprint for the NASCAR Cup Championship to be determined among a Final 4. Chip Weil, the president of Darlington, joins us now as he does every Tuesday night. And thank you for being with us. And you know what? Again, we've said this pretty much every week of the chase. I was engrossed by it Sunday, caught up in the excitement of who was going to make it, who was not going to make it. It came right down to the final lap as it pertained to the 4 drivers, especially Jeff Gordon not getting in. So, again, I think the formula has worked out great and has given fans something to really put their hands around and enjoy.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I think it actually came down to the last corner of the last lap to see who was going to get that last spot with Ryan Newman and the 42 getting together. And, you know, I think it goes to show that these drivers are willing to do whatever it takes to get into the finals. Ryan, you know, we always say 8 tires are better than 4. He certainly put that to test coming into turn 3 on the final lap. But I think after the race, he explained himself, and, you know, nobody can fault Ryan for doing what he did. He knew what he had to do to get to the finals. He didn't wreck the 42. He just bumped him a little bit. He had to get him out of the way. So really exciting day in Phoenix. And if that's any preview for Homestead, we're in for a real treat.
All right, so Hamlin, Logano, Newman, and Harvick, those are the 4. And, you know, if you want to compare this to the other sports and how they do their playoffs, listen, you don't always get the best teams from the regular season into the championships in football, basketball, baseball. We see a lot of wild cards win the World Series. We see wild cards winning in the Super Bowl. So what I'm saying is the guys who might have run the best in the regular season, maybe in the earlier part of the playoffs, they don't make it to the Final 4, but that's not unusual in any of the other sports either.
Well, I think there are 2 teams that certainly have been the conversation piece throughout the season. The 22, Joey Logano, and the 4, Kevin Harvick. Those 2 teams certainly have been the cream of the crop all season. You could also argue that the 2-car, Brad Keselowski, and the 24 and the 88 are the kind of 4 or 5 teams that we continue to talk about on a weekly basis. You know, Denny Hamlin, they haven't had the kind of season they were expecting. He had to sit out a race because of an injury, and he still managed to make the playoffs because of his win at Talladega. One would argue that, you know, Talladega is a wild card race. It's not like you have to have a ton of speed. You have to put yourself in the right position and get to the checker flag first with a push from somebody else. He did that. And Ryan Newman, you know, he's the guy that nobody even was talking about halfway through the season. And in fact, even through the beginning of the playoffs, nobody really even paid as much attention to that 31 team, but they've been steadily getting better, and they've made it to the finals because of a consistent 10-week stretch or a 9-week stretch. You know, that's how they've gotten here. They've been consistent. They've stayed out of trouble. They finished in the top 5 or 7. And kudos to him. You know what? It proves that consistency still matters. And you know, listen, everybody's like, well, you guys are all focusing on winning. That's the new formula. Yes, but everybody got the same set of rules at the beginning of the season, and everybody knew that there was an opportunity to not win and still make it, and Ryan's proved that.
Well, as far as let's say you're a team owner, if you got a winner take all like we have coming up at Homestead, would you want the best ride, the best car right now, or the most skilled driver as far as being a hot driver right now? Which one would you take?
I mean, I think right now you got to look at driver, because the driver is going to make up for what the car doesn't have, especially in Homestead, where everything's on the line. I think it's going to come down to the last pit stop, getting out in front, maybe taking 2 tires rather than 4, or maybe staying on the racetrack while others pit. And that last lap or last couple lap shootouts, what's going to define these drivers' seasons. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I remember in 2008, we went to Homestead leading the points in the Truck Series, and it went back and forth, and we ended up staying out on a green-white checker where our competitor, Ron Horday, who we were battling for the championship, decided to come in and take 2 tires, and we ended up winning by 6 points because we stayed out and he didn't. And I do believe that's what it's going to be like. It's going to be a cat and mouse game all day on Sunday, and it's really the whole race is going to be defined by the last 20 or 30 laps and who does what and who does what strategy.
All right, Chip, hold that racing thought for a moment. Let me update the college football playoffs coming from the panel just a few moments ago. Here are your top 4 in order. Mississippi State, number 1. Oregon, number 2. Florida State, number 3. TCU is number 4. First team on the outside looking in is Alabama, with Arizona State now number 6. So again, it's Mississippi State, Oregon, Florida State, TCU. Those are your 4. If the season ended today, if this were December 7th, that would be your 14 playoff. And then Alabama and Arizona State would be outside. But a lot of big games to be played over the next 3 weeks. This thing is liable to be shaken up quite a bit as we move forward. All right, back to Chip. All right, so how are the 4 going to race Sunday? Now, obviously, they're going to race for the win because you win the whole deal, nothing else to worry about. But how much do they race for the win? But also, how much do they have to race knowing where the other 3 are at any given time?
Well, I think really, if you're driving for the championship, you're not racing the rest of the field. You're racing those 4 or those 3 other drivers. So if I'm Kevin Harvick, I don't care what anybody else in the field is doing, as long as I'm in front of the 22, the 31, and the 11. And I think it's going to be basically 2 races within it. You know, I was telling somebody earlier today that this race is important for a couple of reasons. If you're a team owner or a race team, you want to win this race because you want a lot of momentum going into the offseason. The team that wins this race gets an extra boost in the arm. And going into 100 days of not going to the racetrack every week, you need as much momentum as you could get. Keep people motivated. Keep them, coming to work every morning with a fresh head ready to go. So for all 43 teams, it's critical to win. But if you're racing for the championship, if you're one of those 4 drivers, you're only racing the other 3. So you're certainly going to keep tabs on where everybody else is, when they're pitting. Again, I think it's all going to come down to the last 1 or 2 pit stops. And you're really utilizing some strategy to keep your car out in front.
Do you think the other 39 stay out of the way? I mean, you don't want to be that guy or gal to mess with a championship contender and take him out, do you?
I mean, I certainly wouldn't. And these guys have enough respect not only for each other but for the sport to not be that person to affect the outcome of a Sprint Cup Series championship. I mean, we're talking about the biggest championship in motorsports. Right, and you don't want to be a guy that there's an asterisk next to your name saying he affected the outcome of the. Very respectful. I think the overwhelming majority of the folks in our industry love this new format. The drivers like it. It's exciting. If you saw the ratings over the weekend on ESPN, we were up 21% on the overnight. So fans are tuning in, which is a positive sign for us. Feel like, whenever we can get some momentum like that and people are tuning in that maybe are casual fans and watching the race. I mean, the race on Sunday, yes, Kevin Harvick pulled away, but there was a lot of storylines that played out through the race that really were compelling.
Yeah.
And that's what draws people to the TV. That's what draws people to the racetrack. Last week was sold out. It's going to be sold out. So there's some really great storylines going in the off season for our industry, and I'm looking forward to 2015.
Chip, thank you so much. Keep in mind that in the last 5 years, Denny Hamlin has won twice. He's the only one who's won there in the last 5 years. We'll be back.
DeAngelo Williams breaks one tackle, but then is Stone fumbled a football. Looking slant intercepted. Picked off by the Eagles at the 45-yard line. Newton looking near side, throwing near side, intercepted. Fletcher may score. 20, 10-5 touchdown.
Typically, we play highlights from the Panthers games, but those were definitely lowlights, courtesy of the voice of the Panthers, Mick Mixon, as he joins us now with the postmortem on what was an absolute terrible night for the Panthers. But I always look at things on the good side, Mick, and the good side is you're in a lousy division. You're still very much in the hunt. You got the Falcons coming in Sunday. Beat them. You're right there in the battle for first place. So even though it looks bad, all is not lost.
Well, this season so far reminds me of my social life in high school. I'm getting rejected at every turn, but I guess you're right. There's still a few, by your analogy, there's still a few girls that I haven't approached yet. So, I don't know. We're in bad need of a score, though, Corn, that's for sure. Cam Newton not playing great, getting dinged up a little bit, 9 sacks in the game last night. The Panthers, I mean, how many times have you ever seen a team at any level of football, whether it's light league or in the NFL, have 2 turnovers in the team's first 3 plays of the football game? That was the start we got off to last night.
And Mark Sanchez, what can you say about him last night? They're going to have to consider him maybe as their full-time starter moving forward deeper into the season the way he played. 332 yards. You really couldn't have expected that from him going in, could you?
Very smooth. No, you couldn't have. And, but I maybe it's just because of the perspective that I'm looking at through, Phil, maybe the Panther-colored glasses that I'm looking at through. But it seemed as though me or you or Tom or K-Mac or anybody could have quarterbacked that team last night to a victory over the Panthers. Carolina did not offer the resistance that we needed to, and but credit is due to Sanchez and the Eagles. Even when the Panthers were in their no huddle, hurry up offense, it looked like the Eagles, when they're in their 4 corners, slow it down mode. It's just a testament and a tribute to the tempo with which Philadelphia plays offense.
We know Hardy hasn't played this year for the Panthers, but the defense is still, for the most part this season, has had moments where they're just as salty. And do you think from a psychological standpoint now with the struggles on offense, is that finally that's bringing some chinks in the defensive psyche where their armor is being weakened?
Oh, I think so. They're not only chinks in the armor, they're starting to rust in some places. That's what we're looking at now, and it's normally never one thing. Tom, you guys know this. It is a lot of times it's the whole brick in the wall deal. Cam Newton has had to play from behind. Everything Cam does is going to be scrutinized. He understands that, but he's had to play from behind so many times because of the defensive struggles that he really hadn't had that much of a chance. The offense hadn't had a chance to relax. There was a stat bouncing around on the television set today about, I think it's 26 of 32 NFL teams have at least one tackle who was drafted. The Panthers do not have a offensive tackle on our entire roster that was a drafted player, and I think you're kind of getting what you're paying for right now in the Carolina offensive line.
All right, so as I mentioned, there's still some things to play for and a chance to get yourself into the playoffs here. There's no reason to just throw your hands up and say the year is over, and I'm sure that's the approach Ron Rivera and the staff they are taking. But what about the players? Can they be sold on that? They be convinced? Are they still talking optimistically about making a playoff run?
Yeah, definitely, Phil, and I appreciate your perspective a great deal, and you're right. I mean, and it hurts right now. The Panthers have the 24-hour rule, but when Carolina assembles tomorrow to get back at it, you're exactly right. I mean, this will be the Falcons come in 3-6. The Panthers are 3-6-1, and I would put to you that this will be one of the most enticing, alluring, fascinating matchups between 2 teams that in mid-November have only combined for 6 wins in the history of NFL football.
Well, I was actually kind of talking, too, from a partial standpoint. I needed y'all to beat the Eagles last night to help the Packers try to get a home field advantage.
I knew that was on ulterior.
Here we go again.
Yeah,
always an angle.
You kind of let me down. Now, you've got your radio show coming up across the Carolinas here in a little bit.
Oh, we do. Yeah, nobody's getting in a funk around here. We're going to rack it up. And we got Thomas Deku on tonight. He's a former Atlanta Falcon. and he'll have some intel on Atlanta since we play them. So this time's up well. Coach Rivera will join us. I caught up with him earlier today to do the, as you said in your opening remarks, the post-mortem on the ball game last night. So that's coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Mick. Hey, man, thanks. I know you're dead tired. You got back late or early this morning after a tough night up in Philly. We thank you for being.
I'm not dead tired. I rest in the offseason, man. I appreciate being on your show.
You got it, my man. The Micker, the voice of the Panthers.
They need to play Taylor Swift's "Shake It Off." Steve Spurrier can send that link to the iTunes up to Ron Rivera.
Okay.
Hey, that's your
Shake it
Falcons.
off.
Your Falcons coming into Panthers.
Rise up.
Layer on Sunday.
I kind of like their health right now.
The hard
They've been
knocks curve.
banged up. I think they're healthy right now.
Their O-line.
We'll be back to wrap things up in a moment. All right, thanks again to Mick Mixon, and thanks to Chip Weil for joining us tonight. All right, Tevin Mack has now set an announcement for noon on Thursday at his school at Dreher High School. His coach confirming that this evening, and he has not made his decision yet. So that process continues, but apparently they've pinpointed the time to get it done. I mean, you got to set that time and work your way towards that announcement. So it's South Carolina, Clemson, Connecticut, VCU, and
Georgia.
And Georgia. Yeah. Georgia was his fifth one. So I don't know. Dozier tomorrow. I don't know. I'm feeling South Carolina. Just reading the tea leaves, the fact that he's having a public announcement at his school. I mean, you can choose the team outside of your area.
Just don't put the hat on and throw it on the floor.
But and that may not mean anything at all. But I just I just have an inkling that it's going to be South Carolina. Mac, I don't really have a clue. I know VCU has made a very strong push for him. Georgia's got family connections for his brother having played for Mark Fox. Connecticut, the defending national champions, they've been in on him hard. South Carolina, Clemson, the same. Clemson has sold him on early playing time and playing in the ACC, and of course not being far from home. South Carolina sold him on early playing time and being at home. So I don't know. That's a tough call for him. I don't really have a feel there, and I could be totally off on Dozier. But just the family ties to South Carolina, the opportunity to help elevate the program where his father and his uncle played, and be there where his sister is playing. That may weigh very heavily on him, and the chance he's going to play wherever he goes. But North Carolina, do you really want to step into that situation right now? Do you really want to go up to Michigan, that far away from home? Do you, South Carolina is right there in your backyard. It's just easy. But maybe he doesn't want to do the easy thing. I mean, he's got great opportunities.
There's unique
everywhere
pressure.
he turns.
There's unique pressures when you go home too, and it just depends on.
Well, the expectations would be very high.
But the support system is there. When you're maybe hundreds of thousands of miles away from home and something goes bad, you can get on the phone, but it's nothing like having that support system around you, which not only means family, but probably friends and that sort of thing. I wish the two were announcing on the same day at the same time, so we won't extrapolate that one made this move because the other did this.
I think they're independent of each other. I should mention Georgetown and Louisville, of would
right.
Louisville would be hard to turn down with Pitino and their tradition. So we'll see what happens. We'll have them both covered for you. So join us on Twitter tomorrow from PJ Dozier's announcement. And, of course, complete coverage on the website, sportstalksc.com, and the same on Thursday. Thank you, State Man, Pro, K-Mac. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.